Welcome to Immigrants Making an Impact. Today we have Summie Yeung all the way from the United Kingdom. And Summie helps multiculturals to choose a career path aligned with their identities. And she's doing a number of stuff. We'll delve into that later. But Summie, welcome. We're excited to have you on the show.
Thank you, Mami. I'm so excited to be here and can't wait to talk about how this one book and basically conversations with this one person has really changed my perspective on my own immigration and also my career path.
Summie, take us through your immigrant story. Accent is quite like you were born in the UK and stuff like that. Is that correct? Why did you become an immigrant?
So funny to kind of really address that, Mami, because I get told all the time that my accent's very British. And from a British person's point of view, sometimes it is seen as a little bit international. So I actually wasn't born in the UK. I was actually born in Hong Kong. And I came over when I was 15 years old to study in a boarding school. Now, immediately people would think, wow, Harry Potter, what an experience. And it was an incredible experience. And I genuinely did enjoy my time at this school. But I think when you come across to a new country, age 15, and at the time I was without my parents as well, they stayed behind in Hong Kong. It was just a very, very novel experience. And to me, it was a time when I feel a mixture of things. So I think there is a sense of loss because I am actually leaving a place that I love behind, leaving the people I love, and being here, most of my life now, actually. And being very different actually from people here too. So there's that sense of, okay, so I look different from everybody here, but at the same time, I do kind of feel connected here because I've spent a lot of time here. At the same time, I feel maybe I'm a little bit now remote from where I used to belong to in Hong Kong. So I think there's a lot of conflict in me at the age of 15, and that's kind of carried on until now. I've now stayed in the country for 20 odd years. So I've lived in other places in the UK. I've been mostly I'm in London now. And I think the journey's been, I wouldn't say it's turbulent. I think I'm very privileged to be able to say that actually, I haven't experienced anything that's kind of like, blatant racial discrimination or anything that was, really kind of affecting me mentally. But I think there has been struggles with my identity because I'm an immigrant. And also that sense of the lack of confidence from now and occasionally as well. So we could definitely talk about, these challenges a bit more.
At the age of 15, when you landed here, so trying to adapt to the culture, going to school, how was it like? So if there's a 15-year-old listening and there's anything they can learn around that period that you came in, tell us about that.
I think at the age of 15 is an age where people decide, what they want to really do in their lives. Obviously, a lot of us change paths when we get older, but that time is an age of exploration. It's about adventure. And I think when I came here, I really wanted to kind of experiment a little bit. I think I followed through, a sort of track around focusing on my academics throughout middle school, throughout high school, and then into university as well. I was really focused on kind of, okay, let's just make sure that I progress academically, but also get a good job at the end of after university. And at the same time, I think I was, struggling a little bit, maybe socially as well, to adapt and also get to know people from a multicultural background. I guess because I was very focused on academics and getting, basically what I need to do at school, I left out a little bit of, okay, well, actually, I'm in a melting pot of a lot of multicultural people. And I could really speak to people and get to know their experience a bit more. So if I were to look back and if I have one piece of advice for my 15-year-old self, I would really tell her to really explore and talk to a lot more people who are from multicultural background and really learn about, their challenges and what is it that's interesting about their culture and how do they find being an immigrant or an international student here. And I think that would just really enrich my experience in this country. And that's what I'm kind of doing more of now is to really understand, okay, so what are immigrants facing? What are multicultural people facing in the workplace or in their lives that makes them different? And I think that really kind of grew on me as years go by.
Amazing. And talking about navigating the journey as an immigrant. So let's go into a place of reflection. How has the journey been so far?
Yeah, I love that question. It's such a deep and reflective, enriching question. I guess for me, it has been a good ride in a sense that there has been obviously its ups and downs. I think when I arrived at age 15, I was bright-eyed. I wanted to experiment, wanted to kind of do different things, although I was very focused on my academics. I think I dipped into a bit of a low point a few years ago when I was really struggling with my identity. I was in a workplace, I was doing a good job in my role. It was a very strategic role, but at the same time, I'm facing, these confidence issues. I wasn't sure whether I could continue in my role. And also, I guess it's a very sort of immigrant challenge that we don't get very much support on childcare. And at the time, I have a very young kid, and I really wanted that flexibility in my work. And sometimes I feel, the sense of belonging. I don't really feel kind of belonged here or there sometimes, being an immigrant. And I kind of then thought about, okay, so what is it that I really want to do in the future? Who do I want to serve? What is it that I'm genuinely passionate about? So lots of these questions bubbled up, and I'm sure a lot of immigrants who are listening would share, that journey. I'm sure, Mami, you've probably, seeing you nodding, that you could probably resonate with some of that as well. And I think, that's why I think a lot of immigrants end up being business owners or entrepreneurs, because we have that sense of, well, okay, let's create something different. And let's actually use and harness our resilience, and let's use our gift that we're adaptable people to do something different. And I think looking back, I was reading a book then called Third Culture Kids. And it really inspired me because it talked about my pain points a lot as an immigrant. I'm kind of creating third culture here, which is a different culture to what my host country had got and also my home country had got. And this third culture really then taught me, okay, I could really have a sense of adventure here, and I could really create something that's new and unique for myself. And looking back to that journey, age 15, making it across abroad, to London and to actually the UK, that was actually a really big risk that I've taken for myself. And when I thought about that, I was thinking, well, you know what? I could do something different now. I could be taking these risks as an immigrant. And I could do something that's very different from maybe the Asian norm, which is to follow the route of prosperity, maybe climbing corporate ladder, something that's very, kind of embracing that stability, but do something different, something that creates a sense of purpose for myself, but also helping others as well. So I love that direction. I love that sense of, okay, let's do something here, but what is it exactly? So that's when I actually talked to a coach. And throughout several conversations, I found out actually coaching is a great profession to be helping others in. And that's why I then thought, actually, let's explore this a little bit. I got trained up as a coach. And now this is what I do, is to coach people here from an immigrant background, expat background, from multicultural background, that really shares the sense of, well, yeah, let's create something new for myself. And sometimes people are a little bit stuck in the careers and a little bit stuck in life as well, because of maybe, cultural heritage, parents telling them to do one thing that they didn't really want to go in. Well, actually, culturally, that's what people do. Like me from an Asian background, gaining money and getting traction in your business, climbing corporate ladder, that's kind of what you do. So if you wanted to break up the norm, it's always quite difficult. But I think that's exactly why we need to deep dive into this problem area and address them according to what you need and what you think is the ideal path for you. So yeah, that's what I do at the moment. And I think, having found this new direction as coach, I felt much more enlightened and much more, I guess, purposeful in my work as well. And I saw this gap of, well, actually, there is connection between the cultural heritage, the cultural identity, the cultural gifts. And, Mami, we had this conversation before. You were talking about culture as a superpower. And I so resonate with that because I think, yeah, that's exactly it. As immigrants, we have this superpower to create something for ourselves.
Wonderful. I think that many immigrant mothers will resonate with what you're talking about. Also, immigrant professionals and women, immigrant women as well, because many people are torn between building a career, doing something meaningful, something that resonates with them, something that is aligned to their identity. And many times there is that struggle. They don't know if they have to go for it. And some people already have the security that you had and let it go. So I think that is very important that you talk about your journey so that people will know that it's possible and they are not alone. And it's okay if you don't feel fulfilled in your work and you want to move on and do something different as possible. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. And I think it's so true that loneliness is such an emotion that we face into as immigrants. I think, mental health wise, people of ethnic minority backgrounds are more prone to experience mental health issues, precisely because you might feel a little bit different and, you're kind of different from the crowd when you end up in this country. And obviously, yes, we have got our support network, but it's inevitable that sometimes we feel a little bit lonely in what we do, especially with moms, right? And people who are maybe away from employment for various reasons, and they now want to kind of get back into the workforce or return to work. And confidence issues show up massively in those spaces as well. And yes, indeed, you'll feel quite lonely if you're in a career transition. And even if you're already in a stable job, that you think, well, actually, I can't really talk to my employers about this or my peers about it because people are going to think that you're leaving immediately and may put you in a slightly different treatment. And I think that's a massive struggle for a lot of career changes and career transitioners. And that's precisely why I think it's so important to create a sense of, well, we're in this together, and as a community, we can support each other through this as well. And I think, impact is formed, one person at a time. And I feel like if we all tell our stories in our unique way, we could really impact those around us. And in turn, we could really scale its impact. So that's what I'm aiming to do at the moment, having this mission to talk to one person at a time, and sometimes really to communities of people who are, feeling that sense of loneliness. And I think immigrants is a big group of people where this is very featured in their lives. And I think, you probably resonate a lot from people you talk to, Mummy, that, I think that the sense of collectiveness is very important in our lives, and forming communities where we could support each other, either as moms or immigrants or even like immigrants in the workplace is so important. And I'm hearing a lot of, resonance as well from the clients that I work with on this.
Amazing. So let's talk about impact. There are so many stereotypical ideas about immigrants. And in my opinion, having talked with many immigrants across the globe, I've come to know and confirm that immigrants are making an impact. Immigrants are driving the world economy. So let's talk about impact and the impact that you are making in a community with your work. And also in general, the impact that immigrants are making so that people will know that we are contributing.
I think what I've recently realized is that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs are immigrants. And actually, immigrants form a significant portion of exec level people in the workplace, whether we realize it or not. Obviously, that could be improved a lot in the UK. However, I think we can't underestimate the impact that we're making in society. And I could particularly talk to the point where, we're business owners in this space. And I think as immigrants, we are creative beings. And as we are kind of thinking about a journey, a lot of immigrants are actually doing work that contributes to not just the local economy, but the global economy. When you're thinking about, well, actually, I need to give back to my own community. So I've met a lot of African people who actually are bringing their skills back home and also contributing to, for example, a lady that I've met, she's doing creams, and actually she is, talking to a lot of producers and raw material farmers back home. And I think that, really forms a really nice picture of how immigrants could be, of so better benefit of the whole world. And I guess in my personal experience, how I am impacting this world is that I'm talking to a lot of immigrants, particularly Asians as well, in the workplace, who are struggling massively with actually how do they come up with a purpose for themselves? And as they transition in careers, how do they maximize the impact and optimize what they do? And I think, in a traditional Asian sense, and because I'm from Hong Kong, there is a mixture of, yes, we're kind of from a collectivist culture, but we're also very individualistic. We think about, what is prosperous in our own means and how do we kind of bring money into our own household a lot. However, I think that, it's shifting somewhat. I think we now, as Gen Z millennials, we're thinking a lot more about the impact that we can make to others. And I think in my work, I talk to a lot of these people who are struggling, to make an impact in the current workplace. And they want to really foster the sense of, yes, I want to help others too. So how do we even begin? And what I offer is to deep dive with them into what they treasure as values, either culturally or from the personality, and really kind of talk about, okay, so what are your priorities right now? What is it that really drives you and motivates you? And how does that then help you form confidence to speak out in your own community? And quite often we dig into things like, well, actually, you know what? There is a sense of, yeah, I really treasure respect for people and I really want to collaborate. And some of this originate from the culture. We're really discovering, these cultural gifts that we sometimes don't really talk about in our conversations. And ultimately, I help people to discover their options and quite, I guess before we talk, and quite often people face into the problem of, this is the only option. But as we have the conversation, there's so many more options that people kind of could dive into and really could explore. And via the networks, via people that already know, or actually even just kind of doing some research for themselves. And by that, after we've done some options analysis, we could then really be free to break away from the mold. So that's my mission at the moment, is to help people from a cultural, multicultural background to break away from the mold and really think about, what's possible for them. And I think, there are lots of challenges in between. Sometimes people feel, well, I'm really tied up in my finance, and this is really kind of just, what I need to be doing. And that could be true. But what I really encourage people to do is take a long-term view on the careers and think about it as a lifelong thing. On average, we now spend 80 to 90,000 hours in our lifetime at work. And that's if we're lucky, I guess, to get to old age where we work to that sort of age. But I think we need to really think about, why are we working? And what is that purpose that we're really trying to drive in our work? And I think it's okay to be different as well, to perhaps a cultural upbringing. And as immigrants, we are creating, again, this third culture for ourselves. So everything that you experience is unique to you. So to be able to tell your own story, tap into that cultural gift and really tell your story from your perspective.
Excellent. Talking about impacts one more time and the options that immigrants have. I think that many immigrants are stuck and they cannot break away from the mold. Could you share with us some of the options that immigrants have that, they can start looking into so that they could break away from the mold?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, because a lot of people I work with are precisely in that space where they think, I'm really stuck. And I can't really go to route A because of certain reasons, and then B for financial reasons, or actually just don't have the skill to do that. And I think one way to look at it is, especially if you're already experienced as a career professional, there are certain sets of skills that you're already built up in your career and in your lifetime. Even if you're a homemaker, there's so many skills that you could be offering to society. You just need to really tell your story and tell, what exactly is relevant to what you want to do. So to be able to bridge that gap would enable you to see a lot more in terms of what options you could be in. And I think I would really challenge people to think about, actually what are the networks you could tap into as well. Because the people that you know is also a gift and an asset of yours. And you could always kind of have these conversations to bridge a gap about maybe a certain industry that you may be really interested in, but you just don't know very much of. But by having conversations and bit by bit, you could build up these building blocks towards where you want to be and connect to the dots where you've had these experiences before and use these as assets to your own good. And I think, by kind of really uncovering some of these, you are going to start seeing some more options for yourself. The other thing I really encourage is to think about employment not as a static thing. So you don't always have to be employed by somebody, and you could always be doing something for yourself. Now, I know it's a very hard truth that some people kind of face into, because they think, well, I'm not really an entrepreneur. I'm not either. And I don't think, I still shy away from that term of, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. Not really. But at the same time, I am creating something for myself. So, don't let that term block you, and just really see yourself as the creator, as someone who could create new things for yourself. And I think if you've got a sense of purpose and you want to serve a certain community, why not start somewhere? Start with volunteering, start with joining a network, start with maybe just giving your time to some cause and seeing what that's like. And I think by experimenting step by step and taking small steps at a time as well, you could really then start to have more clarity around, okay, this is actually what drives me. And it's okay to be exploring as well. So no one, I believe, has a very, very clear view of where they will be at the age of 80. And I think everyone is experimenting in their lifetime. Even if you knew someone who's kind of done a like medicine degree and knew that they could be GP, they won't know in 10 years' time whether they will still be a GP, right? So, or a doctor. So I think it's a challenge that I guess I'll put forwards to anyone who's kind of exploring at the moment, to see your journey as an exploration.
Indeed, see your journey as an exploration. Amazing nuggets that you have shared, Summie. Shortly, how can one make an impact?
I think impact is formed one person at a time. And I think when you start taking these small steps, you are going to see some rewards, right? And you're going to see how people react to what you're doing.
Yep.
And for example, if you start to talk to people who are also business owners and kind of share your journey, maybe as a business owner, then actually people are going to learn from that experience. And slowly they could then see it for themselves, the development could form. And then they could start talking to other business owners. And I believe, doing one step at a time is the way to make an impact. And I think being able to do so and also seeing the data that comes back to it is very important. So I'm of the camp of, yes, let's do things, but also do it practically, right? So actually, how do we know that it's really genuinely making an impact on someone's life?
Mm.
And it's sometimes really hard to measure, right? If you're talking about, an average conversation that we have with people. But I think, by seeing the difference and the change that people are making in their lives, you could then start to realize actually, this is kind of, the people that I want to be helping. And I think, we could definitely measure some of that impact via things like, okay, how satisfied are you in your workplace? How much do you feel that you're growing? You could always kind of have quantifiable measures on that as well. And as you begin to experiment and really harness some of that data, you would then see actually, am I really making an impact in that space? So I would say, again, maybe as an encouragement to people is, start one step at a time, but also take measure of what you're doing and see that as data. And I guess in my book, there's not really such thing as failure. And I see, anything that's a drawback as a learning curve, right? So it just so happens that, yeah, maybe you've tried something and that didn't really, work according to plan. No, I've definitely had instances where, I've started running workshops and actually maybe half the people turned up. And this is kind of learning by experience, but that's also data. So now I
Mhm.
can tell others who are business owners who are maybe running workshops for themselves that, this happens. And actually that's part of it.
Mhm.
And that reassures them, right? And I think bit by bit, we could then slowly make an impact in the community because everybody offers, different services. And as we kind of collaborate and really learn from our experiences, maybe, alongside like a pillar, right? That, let's say we all kind of run workshops, then people could start to learn from each other and kind of feel, okay, if I'm running workshops, I could talk to somebody, or I could talk to somebody's work with, and actually I could learn from them in terms of how they facilitate. And bit by bit, we're making change in our own terms as well. So I believe that's kind of how impact is formed. But what are your views on that, Mami?
Well, I would say that impact that's small, that many people
Mm,
think that you have to do something humongous. Therefore, it
mm,
tears them from starting something.
yeah.
And it could start with being a volunteer. And that's all that you need to do. So I would say, in summary, start small.
Mm,
And then let me add this also, that don't really be attached to the outcome because it's going to blow your mind if you keep going one day at a time where it's going to take you. So just start small and keep going.
yeah, I love that. I think starting small is the crux of it because I think, yeah, as you say, a lot of people, tend to dream big, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it could be also quite binding, as in it could be scary to think about the big change that you need to be doing. And I think a lot of people who I see as change makers have this sort of symptom where they say, okay, I'm now going to be doing this that helps save the world. In the areas, really important areas like climate change or global poverty. All of these like, UN SDGs, so to speak, we really want to contribute to it. We really want to see a sense of
Mm-hmm.
purpose. We really want to see productivity and a sense of fruition in these spaces, which are all right things to you to dream about and also to think about. However, the action really kind of is one step at a time. And bit by bit and person by person, we're going to start make that impact. And it's also a collective thing. So
Mm-hmm.
don't see it as something that's just, I've got to save the world. It's never going to be an individualistic thing. It's always going to be a collective effort in order to move the mountain. So completely agree with you. I think this is all about collaborating with each other,
Mm-hmm.
learning from each other, and embracing that, yeah, it's a big journey and it's a big beast that we're trying to fight, but we are getting into this together. And bit by bit, we could really conquer it.
Wow. Great. And I love that you asked me that what would be my say. So wonderful. Sammy, you talked about there's nothing like failure in your books. So there's nothing like failing for you. But what would you do if you knew you could not fail? You already know that. So what would you do then?
Mm, yeah. I really see failure or setbacks as data.
Hmm.
And I think, throughout my life, I've found to have some things that are seen as failures, but it's also a very personal perception. So if you think about it, I've definitely made transitions where I think, well, actually, should I have made a transition? There's a sense of, oh, should I have done that? And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people face into that as they're changing careers, or even if they're migrating, should I have migrated? then that's a big question for yourself. But I think what's important is to see this as also an opportunity to reflect on the positives that come out of the experience as well.
Mm,
Because a lot of times I mean, this is just human nature. We have a negative bias and we feel that we've done something wrong. And that's just ingrained in our psyche because I guess, traditionally people see these as threats. And I think what we need to realize is that sometimes we need to consistently remind ourselves to reframe and really see what we've learned from the experience. It's yes, it may be a setback, and some people may see it as a failure, but how we could see it differently is that from now on, we now have this piece of data
hmm.
and that we could really move on, knowing that this has been trialed and tested and it didn't work. We could do something different. And I think the crux is to acknowledge what has been past, but really taking a step forward, knowing that past and knowing that that's now gone and it's a piece of data that you could really use and for a better outcome.
Absolutely. So use setbacks as a piece of data and then do better.
Mm,
Let's talk about the most important thing you would do today to make tomorrow better.
big question, Nami. I mean, what do you think?
Okay, I thought I was an interviewer, but of course, let me see. So I would do exactly what I'm doing,
Mm,
connecting with immigrants, having telling our stories, collaborating on making greater impact. I will do exactly what I'm doing.
wow. I think that's a very, very bold statement, but I have all the kudos to you because that's amazing. I don't think a lot of people could say that. And you know what? Actually, I probably keep what I'm doing right now too. And I think maybe I could even simplify that to say, actually, I just connect with people.
Mhm,
Because I think by connecting to people, by talking to people and having really purposeful conversations
mhm,
is how we make impact and how we really then be curious about what each other do.
mhm,
And I think story by story start to build up our own story too. And by connecting to different people, we see new opportunities that are formed as well. And I could draw as an experience, I go to a lot of networking events and actually start to talk to a lot more immigrants, but also different people on their business journeys. And collectively, we found so much in common and so many more opportunities for collaboration and also opportunities to scale our impact as well.
mhm.
So I'd say, yeah, I mean, I'll probably do what I'm doing right now. Um, Also, I think there is yes, I think I've definitely done some things, I think, in my immigrant journey, which I'm going like, should I have done that? But again, taking that data and thinking that, well, actually, that's part of me, that's part of my journey. It's no point kind of worrying about the past, but taking it forwards and really seeing, okay, this is how I can make a difference in the future. So yeah, I think I'll probably be doing what I'm doing, like you.
Great. So keep going. And Sami, what personal qualities or skills do you think have been most critical in your success?
Mm. I think the ability to adapt and change has been
Mhm,
crucial to what I do right now. And I think that didn't dawn on me until a few years back when I had that episode of, gosh, I'm really struggling with my identity. I'm really struggling with my confidence. What is it that I really want to build in the future? And I think realizing that is very important, that I have the ability to adapt and change and really shape something out of something that I didn't dream of shaping. When I was graduating, I never thought that I'll be a coach, but I have that ability to adapt. I guess the second thing is resilience. And
mhm,
I think as immigrants, we almost naturally have that because if you land in a place that is kind of foreign to where you were born in or even growing up in, this is going to be your new strength. And I think as a resilient being, I could see, for example, grief differently. When my grandfather passed away in Hong Kong, I was very sad. Of course I was. And I don't think anything could have prepared me for that. But I could now very openly talk about it. And I feel like, you know what, I could really learn from his life.
mhm.
And I could really feel that, yeah, I mean, yes, of course, that was a very sad event. But at the same time, I think I'm really embracing that cultural heritage a lot more. And kind of what he's experiencing is now kind of in me as well. So I think, there's a lot of, I guess, yeah, just, chance, sort of different events that kind of built me to think, well, actually, I'm a resilient being. Um, and I guess the third thing that maybe helped me was creativity. And, I used to work in corporate and I never really thought of myself as a creative being. I wrote songs, but just didn't strike me as, I would never say that I'm creative. But now I'm thinking about it differently. I could use my creativity in a very different sense. I could use it in my business. I could use it in my coaching. I could create things together with my clients. And I think that's a super strength, and also a strength that I think a lot of immigrants have as well. I think we definitely need to embrace that a bit more. And even if you're working in a place where you don't see much of creativity expression, you could really think about, okay, so how could I release that a little bit more? How could I really tap into that inner strength and use it maybe in my hobbies or volunteering or other places that I see, okay, I could, express myself in. And I think that's just beneficial for the soul, to be honest.
Cool. So having the ability to adapt, resilience, and
Mm,
creativity.
yeah,
Cool stuff right there. So let's talk about an advice. If you could give immigrants any advice, what would it be?
yeah. I think immigrants were naturally people who are resilient.
Hmm.
And I would love to encourage people to be the explorers of the world. So really treat your immigrant experience, your, I guess, landing here, meeting people, doing maybe a different job, all of this is part of an exploration in life. And when you see that from this lens, it just opens up a lot more doors. It lets you see the opportunities that are in front of you. And also you would take failure differently. As I say, it's all part of the exploration. It's okay to do something's wrong or, fail at certain things. And actually, to me, that's all data. And you
Hmm.
could really see that as something that is just learning experience. And if you embrace that mindset, I think it will enforce more of a growth mindset in you. And subsequently, you would adapt to that as well. And you really kind of get into this as a bit of flow. So, yes, I would definitely advise all immigrants to be the explorers of this world, be curious about each other, network, learn from each other, and really embrace your identity.
Wonderful. So, Sammy, what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Mm, that's a big question again. When I think of legacy, I think of my kids.
Mhm.
And I think, they're aged 6 and 2. And I guess what I want them to see is that, yes, mom has been an immigrant. Maybe she looks a little bit different to some of their classmates and their moms and dads, but I was here and I have been here. And the journey that I've taken is a conscious one. And it's one that I think they could look back on and think, you know what? She's taken a step. She's been adventurous and she's been resilient. And that's what we can be as well. I think that's what I want to leave behind with them is to think that, yes, they could have the adaptability, the resilience, creativity that they want. And they have that ingrained in them.
Wow. Okay. So I guess they will have this online to listen to in their lifetime. So thank you.
Mm.
You know that immigrants are for the good of all. So do you know any
Mhm.
projects that you think that immigrants across the globe can be part of so that together we can make greater impacts? I'm talking about collaboration.
Mm. So I'm all for collaboration. For my personal benefit, I'm also trying to work with a lot more immigrants in the
Mhm.
place where they feel like, you know what, I'm now in a new place. Well, even if they've been an immigrant, for half of their lives, the thinking of maybe I want to transition my career. What I'm trying to do is actually, I want to build a community who
Mhm.
are very like-minded. And what I like to do is to involve everybody in a workshop. So this is basically part of my three-part gift to you, your audience, Mami, is that this is going to be a workshop that brings like-minded people together. Lots of them will be from a multicultural background, but we will just have the space to talk about some of the challenges we're experiencing,
Mhm.
particularly in the workplace. And if you're thinking of a career change as well, this is the workshop for you to really
Mhm.
hear what others are facing into and see whether there's something to take away for yourself, right? Something that could be a strategy, something practical that you could really think about and harness. The second thing I'd like to offer is actually a workbook and a resource list that I've compiled.
Mhm.
So this is just a free thing that I'll give out, as part of the gift package. That really then lets you to get the head start in terms of thinking about your career transition. And the third thing is I acknowledge that, yeah, whilst there's a lot of collaboration opportunities, everyone's situation is also very unique. So love to offer a free coaching session to anyone who's listening, a one-to-one coaching session that deep dives into your unique experience and your unique challenges as well that you could really kind of talk about in this space. And I'll try my best to support you on your journey.
What? Thank you so much, Summie. I had
Very
no
welcome.
idea what you were going to share, but this is really from the heart. So I would say that you are going to get a number of people who will be interested because I mean we cannot let this go back. So thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mommy, for the opportunity. And yeah, I'd love to hear from everybody.
Cool. As we complete this conversation, Summie, I want you to complete this sentence for the community. So immigrants are.
You know what I'm going to say? Immigrants are resilient, they're adaptable, and also creative.
Thank you so much, Summie, for coming on the show. And thank you for the impact that you are making. And we are glad that you came. You have shared your impactful story. You have shared nuggets that we can use on this lonely journey. And also being such a giving person and giving us all these amazing stuff. So to help us on this journey of growth. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mommy, for the opportunity. I really enjoyed our conversation, so thank you.
I am thankful to have connected with you on this podcast. I want to ask you a favor. Please do subscribe. And by doing that, you help us to bring on many wonderful guests that we can all learn from, grow, and make an impact. I am so thankful for our connection.